Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Growth Path. Today I'm super excited to have somebody on that we haven't spoken with before, actually a new friend of the pod, let's say. Emer's actually one of my fellow country people, also from Ireland, up the north of Ireland, close to the north of Ireland, Donegal. We were just chatting before this about some of my experiences in Donegal, but we won't get into that now. But Emer's background is... She's been working with companies such as GE, Telefonica, O2, and more recently over the past almost, I don't know how long we've been there, Emer, but over the
15
past
years. 15 years.
15 years at Amazon. A lot around customer service, operations, and more recently, Director of Global Programs at WWCS. Emer, tell us, or first of all, welcome to the pod. Really delighted to have you on.
Thanks, Andy. Appreciate it.
Sure. I also see from your profile as well, you're also a board member at a charity called Cleanest Foundation. I just want to mention that at the top. Maybe you might want to give that a plug at some point as well.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about, let's talk about a bit about the work that you've done at Amazon, just to give us a bit of a flavor for that. And I know you're no longer with Amazon. You finished up there not too long ago, like in the past couple of months,
End
right?
of summer last year. Yeah, end of summer last year. So kind of brought me a little bit over 14 years. A whirlwind of a journey, as anybody, I think in any kind of company of Amazon size and that kind of tech growth, it's always a bit of a whirlwind. So I started when the company was still quite small. We had, I think we had 22,000 employees when I joined the company. Something in that region, and a stock price that's very, very different to what it is today. So really, it still felt like a huge jump. So I'd come from the Irish arm of Telefonica O2. So even going to, a global company of 22,000 still felt like this massive leap, but relative to where Amazon there went over the next few years, it's a crazy ride. I've always been a customer service girl. Nobody really, I don't think anybody, when you're a little girl sitting in Donegal, you don't think what you want to be when you grow up. You don't really go to call centers as a career, but it's kind of a bug. Once you get it, it's very hard to leave it, because I think anybody who stays in customer service, it just builds this passion. So spent all my time in customer service as well, and I would say the vast majority of it building. And so initially joined with the UK market. Again, at the time, we only had 5 markets maybe. We had .com, UK was relatively new. We had Germany, we had France, and we had Japan. That was it. So very, very, very different company, very unlayered at the time. So, a lot of what you hear Bezos talk about his day one culture and how he scaled the company, how he built the company, that was very much still alive. So it was, I like to call it glorious chaos. Just the most unbelievable ride of growth, doing crazy things that I was totally unqualified to do, jobs that I was unqualified to do, but you get these opportunities and you just go have so much fun building stuff.
Yeah, I've heard that about Amazon before, back in the early days in particular. I've done a bit of work before with a lady called Anne Hyatt. I don't know if you ever heard of Anne, but Anne was Jeff Bezos's PA back in the early days of Amazon, the really early days of Amazon.
Right.
And some of the stories that she tells about, now this might be before your time even, but stories about they didn't have the money to put desks in, so he put cylinder blocks down and put a door on top, and that was the desk,
Yeah, and that then later became an invention award. So that's actually still given out today. It's called the Door Desk Award, and it's still given out today for frugality and invention.
In Amazon?
Yeah.
That's amazing. I mean, how does that, because look, you say I almost chuckled a little bit when you said it was quite small when you joined at 22,000 employees, right? Tiny, right? Yeah. But when you're talking about it, like a small, let's talk about culture and stuff like that, right? So if we're talking about culture, and the culture is normally bred from the top table, right? And then it gets built by the people within the organization, etc. And then everybody breathes a particular culture. Things like that, the Door Table Award or whatever we just called it. How do you maintain that culture at a company at 22,000. Now I have no idea how many are on Amazon now, but it's 10 times
When I
that probably, right?
left, there was, I mean, there's just been a round of layoffs. When I left, it was 1.6 million.
Okay, there you go, 20 times that. Okay, so like let's talk a little bit. How do you maintain that type of culture, having been in it? And you obviously stayed with the company for 14 years, so the culture obviously appealed to you.
Yeah, and I to be honest, it's exactly what kept me there. I think that the way I've reflected on the culture, and I think how it was maintained, are a few different things. And I think the first, if you're familiar with Myers-Briggs, Bezos is a very strong INTJ. And every mechanism in the company is built to suit that type of personality, right? So if you think of like the introvert side of things and the deep thinking, like there's no PowerPoint presentations. It's all deep narratives, deep reflective time doing reflective work. So I think the main way that he scaled the culture was through a bunch of mechanisms that just embedded the culture into everything we do, right? Like I've worked in other companies where, words of culture are nice, embossed beautifully on maybe glass windows, but they're not really how business is done. I think the culture persevered for so long because it was how business was done, right? So, you take things like one of the big taglines is that failure is an acceptance in order to innovate. But it's very hard when push comes to shove, when there is a big failure, to celebrate it, right? It's almost so counterintuitive. Like my advice to people joining Amazon has always been, there's so much to learn and you'll actually never be done learning. The harder part in joining is actually unlearning a lot of the norms that you have from other corporate cultures, like celebrating failure, like looking for the win in failure, like putting your hands up and saying, you know what, we thought this was a good idea. It's actually crap. Let's can it. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of the mechanisms and kind of decision-making mechanisms in particular that Bezos wanted, like long-term thinking, like acceptance of failure in order to innovate, they were so embedded in the mechanisms of how the business ran that the culture just bred. And I think the other is that, especially at that point, it was a much flatter culture. A lot of the most senior leaders were maybe not original founders, but they were there from the very early days. And it was a very strong teaching culture. So, meetings or calls would regularly just stop and have teaching moments of like, this isn't how we do things. Here's why we think about it this way. Here's why I want you to make the decision a different way. One of my favorite mechanisms is a thing called Tenets, which are really, really curated sets of ways to perpetuate decision-making throughout the organization. So think of statements that kind of sound a little bit like, in a fight between X and Y wins. And that helps kind of perpetuate this culture of decision-making so that everybody can pick up tenets and go, okay, maybe this is counterintuitive to me from my balcony or my purview, but actually I know this is how the decision is going to be made. And so, he's a wickedly smart man in the mechanisms that he created and how he scaled the culture, and did so incredibly successfully, I would say, for the entirety of his tenure as CEO. I don't know that it has been as successful since his departure as CEO, but certainly, even once we tipped 1 million employees, you could still see that culture persevering every day. And you're 100% right. It's what kept me there for so long.
It's unbelievable to be able to create a culture that scales like that. For that to be coming from him as well, like that's unbelievable.
Yeah, literally a one man's mission, but one executed, phenomenally.
Unbelievable. It's very interesting to hear about. But you mentioned failures, right? So you're obviously you called yourself a call center gal. I think what you said at the top of the call, right? So obviously, customer service has been your everything whilst you were there, right? When we're talking about customer service, like the amount of customers, as we've seen, the amount of employees at Amazon grow, the amount of customers that have grown there as well from Amazon is enormous, right? Yeah. So your team or teams were probably serving millions of customers, correct?
Billions.
There you go. Right. So that's a challenge in its own respect. But we'll get to the challenges now in a moment. You mentioned a culture of failure and celebrating failure. Can you give us some insights into some of the failures that you made there?
Yeah.
Having served that many customers. So a big failure in serving that many customers is a terrifying prospect for many people. So I want to hear about some of the real nasty stories. Tell me some of the stuff from the front line.
I think the one that always maybe sticks with me the most, because I think it was my first sort of crucible one where I was on the hook for a lot of the decisions on it, was when we launched what we now know today as Amazon Logistics. So the prime trucks that you see on the road where we do our own last mile delivery. We launched that predominantly in the UK when I was running UK customer service. And that in itself was actually, it's another great culture story of our buy versus build mentality as well. And how we thought about it and why we thought of, I can get into it if you're interested, but we decided to launch it. For me, in the customer service seat, this meant we were now going to be customer service for drivers. We didn't know how to do that. We knew what we didn't like about third-party carriers' customer service, but we didn't know how to do it. We didn't know how to forecast it. We didn't know how to plan for it. We didn't know, we didn't have any assumptions or any inputs to any great degree on how to execute it. And when we launched, it was a disaster. Our delivery performance, both on the logistics side, was a disaster. Our customer service was a disaster. We didn't have the right speed of answer for our drivers, right? Like a speed of answer for a driver standing on a porch needing to deliver versus somebody wanting to talk about their Prime account. They're two very different entities. And so a lot of the assumptions, we made a bunch of assumptions, probably 80% of them were wrong. And so we just had to keep course correcting. And it was a very slow and iterative rollout. And every launch came with a new learning. Again, launching in London is very different to launching in remote South Wales for UK delivery, right? So again, every time that we thought we had a grasp on the assumptions and could actually start figuring the beast out, now you're not done learning. And the same, by the way, perpetuated on once we got past UK, right? Like delivering in France is very different to delivering in the UK. And so on and so forth. So I would say, probably for 6 months, we failed drivers wildly. With long wait times, we impacted their performance. And that's where it rubs, right? Because, they're numerated, they're monetized on things like their delivery performance. So if you're impacting their delivery performance, you're hurting someone's salary. So what seems like kind of maybe an afterthought and like, customer service will figure it out. They'll, handle wait times. But actually, if you're preventing a driver from delivering a package, it's me. Hey, I'm the problem. It's me.
Oh, that sounds rough. I mean, the one thing that I've learned in my career is that I should never assume a thing. I tell that to my team all the time. Don't assume a thing. Don't ever assume anything. But on that scale that you've just mentioned there, that's acutely terrifying is probably the best way to put it. So every time that you're launching something, you're just waiting for the F-ups, right? That's the thing. And
you are. And the reality is that for a lot of things, Amazon Logistics being one of them, we were first to market. So again, you're the one sitting with a blank sheet of paper going, okay, we have to come up with a set of assumptions for things like forecasting, planning, etc. You gotta put as best guess judgment as you can on paper. And again, the point of, I guess, coming back to the point of your question, be very ready to not just wait for somebody to inspect you and hold up your hands and say, hey, you know what, we got this wrong, but to like flag the alarm of like, we messed up, we need help, here's the information we need, here's how we're going to get back on track. It's deeply uncomfortable, but it is a skill that you learn. I mean, the first time that I had to learn it in Amazon, deeply, deeply uncomfortable because it's so counterintuitive to most corporate cultures, right?
To any culture, like to any type of business environment, whether it's very corporate or not at all, it's And also as well, I think I've been with companies before that claim to have that sort of failure mentality, learn from our failures, but it's bullshit. A lot of the times it's bullshit, like they'll kick you out the door as quick as you came in, So it sounds as though because it probably helped the fact that Amazon was a market leader, as you said, and being the visionary in the market. So first to attack, first to implement things, no choice but to learn quickly and move on, and to accept failure, because you will have failure. Like, as you said, 80% of the assumptions didn't pan out to be what you assumed, right? So that failure rate's relatively high, but you're going to expect that anyway because of the fact that you're first to market, right?
Yeah, yeah. But again, and I think one of the things that I enjoyed most about the culture was, maybe I'd call it acceptance, but intolerance. So, right, like we accept the failures are going to happen, but not tolerating that they'll persist for any length of time. So like that urgency to get it right, the urgency to make it better, especially when you've got end customers on the hook. I think that's a lot of the culture was very two-sided, right? It had one statement and it had an arch enemy on the other side, kind of forcing you to come into the middle so that it was never too extremist. So it was never it's fine to fail. It wasn't blasé failure. But more acceptance. We're going to fail, and when you do, you put your hand up, you don't blame, and you fix it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a solid culture to have, and I mean, it's worked. It's clearly working, right? It's clearly working. Let's change lanes a little bit, right? So, still sticking with Amazon though. If we're talking about, okay, serving to billions of customers, that's not scalable from humans, right? To be able to to go back to the point before about call centers, etc., right? And the reason why we met as well is through a technology that we're both close to, right? A customer, Purple Path at Get Vocal, and you were speaking with the team at Get Vocal a couple of weeks ago, there has to be a heavily reliance now on artificial intelligence and AI. How involved have you been in that process rollout across the customer service teams at Amazon?
Yeah, heavily. I mean, we've been on this path for a long time. I think kind of backing up before you even get to AI or self-service technology, whatever you want to call it. I think one of the core things that we did really well on Amazon was accept that nobody wants to wake up in the morning and have to call a call center. Right? Nobody's excited to say, "Yay, I have to call Virgin Media today." Right? No, like nobody's excited, and so the first order priority is how can we identify the actual defect that is leading to a customer needing help in the first place. And I would say that was a much heavier, probably in equal parts maybe, but a very heavy part of the strategy is how do you work upstream with, again, think about retail teams, think about logistics, warehouses, etc. How do you just stop anything going wrong? So how do you just stop the defect from getting to the end customer? And we invested more, if not just as much, in that than the automation of customer service. And so it was sort of a flywheel and to an extent a stopgap of like, in the first instance, try and stop the defect, fix it, just get rid of it. Whatever's causing it, get rid of it. If you can't do that, right, and if you take something like, say, deliveries, right, and late deliveries, with billions and billions of deliveries, there's a very, very small accepted defect rate, but there is an accepted defect rate. And that then is going to equate to contacts. So yes, heavy then investment in AI. Again, we've been on this path for a long time with machine learning, right? Like less advanced technology fueling our self-service tools. So how you get more proactive with customers and notifying them that there's going to be an issue with their product, or how to, again, make it easy to just use the website rather than have to contact a call center. Nobody's excited by that. And then internally within CS, our main focus as well as the technology is, okay, if you've had to go to the effort of contacting a call center, now we want to make this a really delightful experience. We know you don't want to be here. So how can we make this as easy, as straightforward, as efficient, and maybe delightful, maybe something surprising and delightful, so that it doesn't end up feeling like a chore.
Okay, so tell me about. Let's focus on the delight piece then, because that's piqued my ears up a little bit. I don't think I've ever had a delightful experience with a call center. Now, saying that, I don't think I've ever called Amazon, so I don't know. But give me an example of a delight.
Yeah, I mean, we did these sporadically, right? So it could be something really really minor to something um, much more meaningful. Like the biggest delight, it's probably not the biggest, but the one that stands out in my mind, it was coming up to Christmas. A family had called. I don't like. This is how I cached the story, so this is as best as accurately as I can recall it. Family were having problems with deliveries. They'd contacted. I think they were having recurring problems with deliveries. They'd contacted. There was an issue with how their address was cached in our system. We managed to figure it out and caught it and resolved the issue. Great. So resolve the issue, cool. But as part of the conversation with one of our associates along the way, the mother had mentioned that the son, I think he was like 3 or 4, maybe 5, was obsessed with our Prime trucks. And she was asking, like, do you sell those on the website? And we're like, no, like, it's not really a thing that we sell. But because we'd messed up this family's experience so many times, we organized for one of our Prime trucks from a nearby warehouse to go visit the home, to let the kid come out, like toot the horn, etc., etc. So again, something that, you're not talking about billions of dollars or hundreds of dollars. It's kind of more thought and effort versus like monetization or trying to buy customers' affection, but more just recognizing, hey, you know what, we really messed this customer's experience up. Is there something we could do to make up for it?
That's an amazing experience. Like, I mean, a company that's serving to billions of customers worldwide, to be cognizant enough to provide a personalized experience to make up for a shitty one, let's say, is very, it's not to be expected. And I think that's the delight. I think that's something, again, that sounds as though it's very deeply ingrained within the culture there. It's an amazing thing to see, right?
Yeah, yeah, a big culture of empowerment and frontline empowerment. And again, I've worked in a lot of call centers and kind of been in the industry for a long time, and that's probably one of the differentiators as well. Is, you can be an associate who's walked in 2 weeks ago, and if you see something that's the right thing to do, there's clear mechanisms to escalate to get the right thing done.
That's fantastic. That's very, very cool. That's a great story as well, by the way. Thanks for sharing.
It's on YouTube. I'll dig it out. You can put it in the links.
Yeah, I will. Of course, send it on to me. That'd be excellent. All right, just you've left Amazon now. You left 5 months ago.
I didn't remember, yeah, but yeah, time is flying.
Yeah, time is flying. There you go. What's next for you now? You're taking a bit of a break, are you?
I'm calling myself semi-retired, or at least retired from corporate. So I unless something completely unexpected happens, I loved my time in corporate. I learned more than I probably ever would have imagined when I started or unintentionally started a career in corporate. But I think that chapter of life has served me now, and it's time for something a little bit different. So as you say, yeah, I'm serving on a board of a charity. I'm doing a bit more kind of pro bono type work to help especially startups scale more, having had that experience with Amazon. So yeah, I think a little bit more focused on, I don't want to label it as like consultancy or whatever, like, but dipping my toe into, I think particularly helping startups scale.
Amazing. Yeah. So we have a saying around here, because we work together with a lot of startups, a lot of scale ups, right? And we tend not to use the dirty C word around here, consultancy. It's awful. As soon as you call yourself a consultant, it's game over. Nobody wants to know.
Nobody wants, and rightly so.
Exactly. But yeah, so obviously, like, okay, corporate life is, I was never the corporate guy. It's never been for me. I've always worked in the largest companies that I've worked at have probably been between 2,000 to 5,000 employees. So scale ups are the largest that I've been at. That, what you've mentioned there before, although there's a lot of structure and procedure and everything to make sure that everything is running somewhat smoothly at large organizations like Amazon, there's still obviously with that culture of the failure culture that we mentioned before, and being able to pick yourself up from that. still making that you need to make those large decisions that impact massively on a massive number of people and things like that. That can be very wearing, I can imagine. I'd say the stress levels were very high for a number of years. Is that correct?
It's a high stress environment, no question. It's not for the faint-hearted. You don't go to Amazon to have an easy time. You go to work really hard. The nature of my role meant that I was traveling on a pretty grueling schedule internationally as well. And that transpires to be a younger person's game. So again, it was great for many years. It takes its toll. And again, thankfully has afforded me the luxury to be able to say, you know what, I think that chapter of my life has served me now, and it's time for something different.
Excellent. How are you enjoying how things are moving at the moment? Is a change of pace for you? I'm sure it's, first of all,
adjusting. It's an adjustment.
Yeah.
It's an adjustment. I think I'm still adjusting, but looking forward to I say the summer months as if we get a summer in Ireland as well, Andy, but like at least it not being raining on a daily basis to really hopefully recharge, I guess, and just get ready fully for that next adventure.
Hold on a sec. Who said it's not going to rain every day during the summer in Ireland?
Well, at least rain maybe for less than an hour a day.
There you go. Just, it's that my wife is not Irish, as I mentioned at the top of this, and I don't live in Ireland any longer. But when we do visit Ireland in the summertime, we do it to escape the heat of here. So there is, it's just, and Ireland. The thing about Ireland is there's no such thing as bad weather, just bad clothing. So you just need to be prepared for every eventuality, and you'll be grand. You get 4 seasons in one day.
It's a good motto to have.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, Emer, look, thanks a million for your time. It's been really great speaking with you, and I wish you all the best with your next venture as well.
Thanks a million, Andy. Been a pleasure.
Sure. Thank you, Emer. Emer, where's the best place for people to get you, actually, just before we finish up?
You can get me on LinkedIn.
Perfect. I'll make sure to add all the details at the end or in the description of the episode. And if there's ever anything we can do for you, just let us know.
Likewise.
Thanks a million. Guys, this has been our episode of Growth Path. Tune in again next week for more great content. Thanks a million, Emer.
Cheers.